everybody. It's Amanda back for another episode of The Heart of Rural America. And today's guest needs absolutely no introduction. Dr. David Kohl is an academic Hall of Famer in the College of Agriculture at Virginia Tech. And we recently had the opportunity to connect when I was speaking out on campus to the agricultural students. And Dr. Kohl, I just want to welcome you warmly to the show. And I'm excited to dive right into some of these big topics that we have on the agenda.
Well, first of all, thanks for coming out to Virginia Tech. The students really enjoyed you. Matter of fact, we got some great comments back, and thank you for coming out. Matter of fact, it's a beautiful day here in the Blue Ridge Mountains, about 70 degrees. The leaves are changing.
Oh, it's beautiful country out there. And, I was so impressed that I can barely remember where I've been, I don't know, like last week. And I had said to you, oh, we met, I think it was 13 years ago. I wasn't even married yet. And we were both speaking at this Michigan event, and you knew the exact place as a dairy meeting in, what was the town again?
Frankenmuth. It's where Christmas is 365 days a year.
Yes. Isn't
Yeah.
it funny how paths can cross and then
Yeah.
years later, you do often come to my hometown of Mitchell, South Dakota to
Oh, yeah.
speak at First Dakota National
Yeah.
Bank. And I've always really valued your insights, not just as an expert and a professor and someone that teaches in the academics, but also someone that's really rooted in agriculture yourself. I guess just to kick things off, just to give people a little bit of perspective, what's your background in agriculture? What do you do at home on the farm?
Well, we have a cow-calf operation, and we also raise hay, and we do both round bale, square bale, mainly to beef and equine owners. But other part of our business, I'm in there with my son on that one, but we have Homestead Creamery. We've been in business 23 years,
Wow.
and it was designed to keep small farms in business. We have 6 small farms, about 75 to 125 cows produced for the creamery. We sell milk in the old-fashioned glass bottle. We sell premium ice cream. We're noted in this area for our ice cream, and we're coming into eggnog and custard season. And
Wow.
first year of business was about 650,000 in sales, and we'll probably hit close to 15 million this year. And it was started by a young person, 27 years of age.
Wow. I love that model because we see so many
Mhm,
producers, both in
mhm,
the cow calf, we lose 1,300 cow calf operators every year. We lose
mhm.
another 2,500 small dairies every
Yeah.
year. And so is this creating pathways to profitability for these small farms? I mean, I just love what you're doing there. You're putting what I talk about and what you talk about on the road into practice.
Yeah, one of the things that our producers, and mainly they're from about 25 to 45 years of age, allows them to be productive. We give them a consistent milk price all the time so they can do their planning, and it's part of the community. It's real interesting now that county, Franklin County, Virginia, is down to 28 dairies, and we have 6 of the 28 dairies. And a lot of folks would say probably those 6 dairies probably wouldn't exist if we didn't have the creamery. So it's really good to has a good feeling, but we also are very close to the consumer, and we pay attention to what they want. We actually launched A2 milk a couple of years ago for lactose intolerant people, and we just had a big open house, and I did the milking parlor milking tour, and we had 2 or 3 people say, "I can drink milk now," and boy, that just puts a big warm and fuzzy in the heart.
Well, I feel so excited to be sitting and speaking with you today because you're an expert in business growth and economic trends and risk management, and feel like there's such a wealth of information to glean from you in a short window of time. And I had asked people on social media, I said, I'm talking to Dr. Cole. What questions do you want answered? And there was a lot of young producers that
Mhm.
weighed in. And so one question from Sarah Preston came in, and she says, I would be curious to know, looking down the road, where does Dr. Cole see the most opportunity for young farmers? Is there a segment or area of ag he thinks we should pay attention to, or something that you're particularly excited about?
Sarah, that's a common question that I get. And you know what I say? I don't think there's one next big thing. if there wasn't one next big thing, there would be all the venture capital coming in. You know where I see the opportunity? It's about the 5% rule. It's trying to be 5% better, no matter what enterprise. I know many of you have beef cow calf or feeding out some cattle, but you might have a grain operation. It's being 5% better in production, operational efficiency, marketing, financial management. But you know what? The big one that's coming, and you speak on this, is human resource management. You may not hire a number of people, but you interact with suppliers, you interact with the community, you interact with the consumer out there. So my answer would be it's kind of boring. It's about being 5% better incrementally in many of the areas. And Dr. Danny Kleinfeller, who just recently passed away, Texas A&M, he coined that. That's what he saw the TPAP, the Ag Executive people that I've spoke to for 33 years. That's what they do. And I got to tell you, Amanda, I'm speaking from the head and the heart. That's what we attempt to do both in the cow-calf hay operation, but also particularly in the dairy creamery where the numbers are bigger.
Yeah, no, that's great. And kind of to add on that, Kelly Talbert asks, what would your suggestion be for a first generation farmer that wants to farm but has to start from ground zero in
Yeah.
terms of land and stock?
Yeah. One of the things that you will do in starting from a scratch, oftentimes you'll have outside income.
Mhm.
I call it gig income. And one of the things, I do about 15 young and beginning farmer rancher conferences annually. Uh, the younger generation or the beginners are very resourceful. And so they'll use their outside income or side gigs to kind of leverage that money to kind of, build the resources that are necessary, whether it's the machinery or whether it's the livestock. And what you'll find is probably that first 10 years, it'll be kind of slow go. But what you're attempting to do is build so then, just like you did, you get you that first tract of land and then the second tract of land. And I've got to tell you, there's a number of programs out there with the banks, farm credit, also with the government, where you don't have to have a big down payment.
Mhm.
And so sometimes you can use those FSA combined with bank or farm credit programs to actually put together a package so that you can acquire the necessary resources. But I think something that's very, very critical is to develop that cash flow.
Yeah.
And we actually do a weekly cash flow at the creamery, but a quarterly cash flow. And it's 80% of the business plan because you got to think through your production, your marketing, and your finance. But the key thing is to monitor it. But I heard you say this at VATech the other night. Sometimes you've got to have some coaches and mentors to help you along. And can I just add to that? 21% of American farmers and ranchers have no next gen to come back. So
Right.
there's going to be a lot of opportunity out there, particularly as us baby boomers, kind of go through the retirement years.
Yeah, I hear that all the time. There's no labor, nobody wants to work. And yet I know so many young people that would kill to be in production agriculture. And I think it's just a matter of starting to ask the questions and put yourself out there and find those older producers that are looking for maybe some kind of succession plan. And you never know unless you ask.
Yeah, and one of the things that they all look for, can I trust you?
Yep.
and sometimes you may not be an expert or anything, but sometimes just being a good listener. I often say God gives us two of these. One of these
Yes.
wants us to listen twice as much as we speak,
Mhm.
soak it in, and then basically care about people. And if you can kind of put that in the position, and I gotta tell you, man, sometimes I find we'll have some discourse in family businesses, and so sometimes I suggest that they go out, and start on their own
Mhm.
if you can't go back into the family. But I find right now the agro entrepreneur is alive and well, and it's shaping the next gen of agriculture, and that's what I get excited about.
Yeah. Well, your enthusiasm and your joyfulness is contagious. I think a lot of times, especially in the livestock industry, we can fall into this this
Uh,
pitfall of being negative and all the deck is stacked against us and it's never going to work. I guess maybe two-part question. What do you see the biggest pitfalls right now for livestock producers are, and how do you see producers that are doing well and navigating through some of those pitfalls?
yeah, I think one of the pitfalls is sometimes we'll think in the silo,
Hmm.
and in other words, grandpa, grandma did it this way, mom and dad did it this way, so we're going to do it kind of this way. And one of the things that I really find is to develop those relationships with other peers. And can I just suggest, man, get outside your industry.
Hmm.
Sometimes I find going and looking at other agricultural industries, it might be a landscaping business, etc. Just see how they do it,
Hmm.
and that I call it the executive management mindset, very, very critical. And one of the big headwinds in our beef industry, sometimes, the prices are dictated to us. So, we got a lot of consolidation. Not
Hmm.
going to go too far there, but I'm being a realist.
Yeah.
And but then I'm starting to see, for example, some folks are starting their own processing business. Some of them are doing regenerative, uh, you know, uh, land resource projects as the competitive edge. Sometimes they're going back and looking at what their grandmother and grandfathers did way back in the 1920s and 30s as far as land practices, et cetera, et cetera. So the whole point I'm trying to get across, cycles are out there. Right now, we're in a pretty favorable part of the beef cycle,
Yeah.
and we got the price advantage. But then one of the things that you got to be really careful of, you got to be reinventing yourself. One of the things we'll say at the creamery, what are two or three things that we can do to continue to align with that consumer out there? And so that would be some of my advice out there. And it's real interesting, man. You've seen it. I'll get, I can tell by the audience, I'll get some folks that are just kind of production oriented, et
Mhm.
cetera, et cetera. But once I sit down, maybe have lunch with them or, in the evening, et cetera, they'll come up 2 days later and go, this business stuff, finance stuff, marketing stuff, I wasn't too keen to it, but you might have some points there. So sometimes don't be overwhelmed by everything. Uh, you can't, it's about eating an elephant, take it
Yeah.
one bite. And so don't be overwhelmed and be coachable. I
Yeah.
think that's a key out there as well.
Well, I've had to learn to work backwards instead of forward, and when you're on the cow calf side, you are at the beginning stage. So you're thinking about calving ease and weaning calves and doing all those things. But
Mhm.
now my mindset is very much what does the customer want and how do I work backwards? And I had to learn that by starting a pandemic project of a retail boutique where I'm selling like farm toys and books and
Yeah.
sweatshirts. And it's like, okay, I need to get the sweatshirts that the people will want. And then I work backwards to source it. And then I have to tell the story. And people can't buy if they don't know what I'm selling. And so, are producers good at telling their story? I'm not so sure.
No, they aren't, and so sometimes they need some coaching and
Mhm.
some assistance there. And it's funny you brought that up. I know in our we do AI with the cows, and we hit the dollar value. But boy, one of the things that we're breeding for is docility,
Yep.
and a big theme around our farm is age friendly because of me. I don't care if it's handling facilities. Like this morning, I was feeding cows. I'm in this suit and be talking to the leaders tomorrow. But I just every time, thank goodness, we've got an age-friendly type of situation. Many of our calves actually go up and they are sold, fed out, and sold direct to consumers. So people really wanted to know you know, some of the attributes that we use in the AI, and I see this very, very exciting. And there's nothing like when a person says, "Boy, that steak or even the hamburger, just
Yep.
tastes better." Or with us, it's the milk and the ice cream.
Yep.
It just gives you, warm and fuzzy. But sometimes what you have to do, you have to go listen to programs like that you do, so that you can develop that story. And people really like authenticity. There's no
Mhm.
doubt about it. And boy, they can see through it, authenticity and trust, but then know what you're talking about, and then being able to align and deliver out there, very critical. And you'd say, well, I'm out here in Hinterland, Nebraska, or out there. Again, people will connect with you.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just a matter of getting out there. Social media makes it so much more
Yeah,
available to connect with people, to connect with your audience. And I want to switch gears a second. I see you were out in my neck of the woods. You were in Bismarck here speaking at a credit conference, and
boy, you tracked me down.
oh yeah, just your biggest fangirl here. But there was a little report written about what you had talked about, and there was a quote that they had mentioned in the article that says, "Right now, agriculture is experiencing a triple play." And you say that
Yeah,
for the first time since the early 1980s, farmers are having to manage prices, inflated costs, and interest rates all at the same time. You call it Patsy Cline crazy, and you tell people we will not have another farm crisis unless farmland values collapse. Can you explain
yeah,
that a little bit to us?
yeah, yeah. Right now, if you really think about it, we have these inflated costs. I'm talking the ag industry in general, not
Yep.
beef right now.
Yep. Yep.
And then we got interest rates up 500 basis points or 5%. And
Hmm.
then we got such volatility in prices. And normally we only have to manage one or two of those. Right
Right.
now, we got to manage all three. So uh, air, uh, the margin for error is extremely thin. And that's why you've really got to be on your numbers and on a business plan. I heard this said the other day, you can develop the business plan, and we do at the creamery, but we tweak it throughout the year and as it goes. As far as farmland is concerned, I want you to think about this, man, and to the folks following the podcast, 82% of the U.S. farm balance sheet's farmland. The other makes up machinery, cattle, inventories. And so we would have to have a collapse in farmland and farm and ranch land values to have another 1980s.
Okay.
And what's preventing that right now? It's called the D, demographics. Many people that own farms and ranches are in my age group out there,
Hmm.
and we're going to continue to buy farm ground because we're not going to invest in cryptocurrency and
Right.
probably the stock market. And so this what we're seeing is that ownership of farmland and the demographics, many of those folks are debt free or minimal amount of debt, and so that's why I don't see the collapse. And I think they quoted me, Patsy Cline crazy, and again, I like old country.
I do.
And and it's one of the things, the farmland values have been going up at an accelerating rate, and I see that leveling off a
Okay.
little bit. And actually, we might see some declines, but it would take a 30, 40, 50% decline to throw us back into the 1980s. And so that's kind of where I was coming from. And I was speaking, they had well over 150 bankers, ag bankers. And, I do that conference usually every other year. And so that was kind of my message. And what it does, I'll hear young farmers go and ranchers say this, well, I can't continue along because I don't have collateral or land as collateral.
Hmm.
Then what you have to have is a high business IQ. I call it the cranium,
Okay.
uh, the management. And that's knowing your cost of production, knowing your break even, having a marketing risk management plan, doing a cash flow, doing all those. Then what that does, it gives your confidence to your lender that, maybe we can take a little bit more risk. And I'll tell you one thing that we didn't have in the 1980s. We've got crop insurance, livestock insurance, and we got guarantees. And I think that's actually put a floor out there. So that's where I was coming from in the conference up there at Bismarck. And by the way, really enjoyed it. And the bankers in there, boy, they were engaged, very, very engaged.
Now, how do you see bankers looking at the livestock industry in general right now? I've been speaking at a lot of banking conferences too, and I always ask them, and it always seems like they don't want to play, like put their bets on the cowboy. Are you seeing that? Are you bearish
I,
or bullish on the cattle industry?
but they'll ask me, and right now, I say, the beef cow calf, it's hotter than a pepper sprout. Here we go. This is one of the old stuff. No, the prices are good. Our cattle
Yep.
inventories are down, et cetera, et cetera. Demand's pretty good. One of the things that kind of concerns bankers and lenders with the cattle industry, sometimes we'll see fraud.
Hmm.
In other words, we've got X amount of cattle on the balance sheet. We go out there, they aren't there. And so fraudulent activities occasionally can occur. And the other thing is, I, I will say this. Sometimes the bankers think that the focus is just on production, but
Mhm.
they don't realize we've got a whole new group of people in our industry that know the numbers, know the marketing and risk management program. So that's one of the things that I really try to convince them. Hey, you know, take a chance, and you know what? The other thing, just like yourself, I'm seeing more and more folks in the beef industry have the outside gigs and different things like this. And you know what? Yeah, it's income, but you know what you're doing? You're out there networking, picking up new ideas. So
Yeah.
that's how I convince the kind of the cautious banker that maybe you need to take a chance out there, and maybe they're not going to have all the land collateral, et cetera, but they got the management and the business IQ. And that's the thing that I really try to train out there. You know what? The other thing that we do sometimes at the conferences and at the school, for example, we had the Advanced Ag Banker School down in Nebraska, Kansas, Nebraska. We had a number 3 days, but we had three producers attend all 3 days. And so if there was a question, and two of them were beef cow calf and feeding out steer or feeding out cattle. And what was real interesting, if there was a question, we'd turn around and we'd ask them. And by the way, the producers there were from about 35 to 50 years of age.
Wow.
And
That-
so sometimes what I do, and I'm kind of in the position to do it, I try to, bring people together
Yeah.
and, give them new thoughts and ideas. And again, uh, that's one of my roles in life now.
Well, and I think storytelling, being able to tell your story to your banker too, is just as equally as important. It makes a difference if you can explain your business model and what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a big fancy business plan. Sometimes I find the most successful business plans might be 4, 5, 6 pages, but that cash flow monitoring, no, by the way, knowing the goals, having that cash flow, doing a balance sheet,
Hmm.
and then I've got this business IQ, which a number of people will fill out. It's about 15 questions. Having those 4 or 5 things, what does it do? It brings confidence not only to the frontline banker but to the analyst that might be just analyzing the numbers,
Hmm.
and that's the critical element. Now we have what we call the hunters and the skinners. We got the hunters out here hunting deals. We got the skinners in the back office looking at the financials. So
Yep.
having that, and as we told the students over here the other day, or when I lecture in class, I'm pointing over on campus. Spreadsheets are your best friends, and developing some of those, best average, worst case scenario. But I got to tell you, Amanda, you know what the creamery did to me this year?
What's
They're
that?
calling, they're calling me the old fogey, and so they challenged me. They developed the best of the best scenario, and I told them it couldn't be done. Well, of the first 9 months, they've exceeded it 8 months. But the month they didn't do it, I said, "I told you so." No, but all
That's
joking aside, it was really a great challenge.
That's great. Well, I know you're super busy and I promised you a hard stop at 25 minutes. So we'll wrap here and maybe we'll have to have you back for a part two one
Oh,
day down the road.
anytime,
But
anytime. If I'm out there on the road, we'll do one of these.
yes, we'll have to. We'll have to. I do sincerely hope we're at a conference together someday soon. But last question, we'll leave it on a light note. I got another question online that asked, what's your favorite flavor of ice cream or at the creamery that you sell?
It's really interesting. The most popular flavor is vanilla, followed by chocolate,
Okay.
uh, followed by older people and women like butter pecan.
Okay.
But you know what my favorite is?
What's that?
Espresso chocolate chunk.
That
I
sounds
mean, you
good.
don't have to go to Starbucks.
Right?
And, oh,
And
that
the
stuff,
creamery.
man. our dogs just love espresso chocolate. Oh, I know you aren't supposed to feed dogs chocolate, but I really enjoy that, and it's really good. That's my favorite.
Wonderful. Well, how can people follow along both for the information that you share, the wisdom you share, but also to support your agricultural business as well?
Well, one of the things is we do weekly articles, the Road Warrior,
Okay,
and then you'll see me in Farm Futures magazines. But one of the things that I also do various podcasts and different things. So I'm going to have Alicia just kind of send those out, and then you can
great.
kind of post them up there. And if you get back here in the Blue Ridge Mountains, everything, stop by Homestead Creamer. It's near
Wonderful.
Roanoke, Virginia, and again, have an ice cream on me. and
Wonderful.
yeah, but
Wonderful.
and I just want to shout out. You keep up the good work and everything, and there's just a lot of opportunity in the agriculture industry. And one thing that you said the other night that really hit home, and I took 3 pages of notes. Sometimes success can be measured in dollar signs. Significance is what you give back.
Mhm.
And sometimes I'll find farmers and ranchers will say, the best crop I'll ever raise will be my children or grandchildren or a young person that wants an opportunity. Never forget that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm honored. It was such a pleasure to see you at Virginia Tech, and
Yeah.
and definitely when you showed me the pages of notes, I was like, oh wow, the expert is taking notes on what I have to say. So I was deeply humbled by that. But God bless you. Thank you so much for being on the show, and we'll see you on the dusty trail.
Yep. Take care now. Thank you.